please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Where Are They Now? Today we are going to be taking a look at Jeffrey Marsh. Now Jeffrey Marsh, like a few entries this year, hasn't actually had a video done by me in the year of 2024. So instead we're going to take a look at things I find interesting that happened over the course of 2024. Whether that be political commentary, and no, I'm not offering a bloody opinion on it, because that's cancer and you all know I'm right. Whether it be talking to children, whether it be giving life advice, or perhaps even Jeffrey Marsh in pop culture. In 2023 I mentioned that Jeffrey Marsh was on a steady decline, having plateaued as early as 2016-ish, rising certainly on places like Vine, moving over and carrying on essentially, but plateauing quite early nonetheless, to now where they are a fair bit older, they look it, they sound it, but somehow the consistency of the message is present, which is an impressive feat, to still believe what you're selling even though what you're selling is an absolute load of horseplot. So let's go all the way back to January 2024 and see what Jeffrey Marsh offered the creative space.
Can I tell you what it's like to be the trans punching bag of TikTok? I'm so joyful about it. I'm not the only one, obviously. It's a very transphobic place. Of all the rankings, you know, Twitter is the most transphobic, and I think TikTok's underneath that. And then I would put, like, you know, Facebook, Instagram as less transphobic places. But, oh gosh, YouTube. Ooh, transphobic.
The problem Jeffrey has is, Jeffrey, at this stage in their career, is nothing without those haters. Those that Jeffrey has dubbed transphobic. Also, it seems to be subjective as to what transphobic is. If they're not paying any attention to you, you do not get the views you used to get. You know this. You're a lolcow, so of course you know this. You don't generally make it a point in any of your content to address much of the criticism. You sometimes put one comment on the screen and leave it at that. You don't say anything, you just laugh it off, which is actually an impressive and admirable quality in you. You also like to shake it off a bit, and I'm saying that on purpose because you talk about some of the stuff concerning Taylor Swift, but also you musically are quite talented. Every month I've seen at least one video of you on Instagram or TikTok playing an instrument. One of them looks like a lyre harp. It's a good instrument. You should sing more often. But I know it doesn't get you the views, so sometimes you like to call misogyny on many different subjects at once, because that does drum up additional interest in you. Continuing though with this video before we carry on.
I'm not the only one. Dylan, obviously being the prime example of a very beautiful, innocent person who got tons and tons of hate this year.
This video was only posted to Instagram on the 8th of January, so I think they mean at this point last year, but they posted to Instagram late. Dylan is getting a separate video because I want to cover them. Dylan is not innocent. I'm sure they're a sweet and lovely person, but I find them fascinating enough that they warrant a catch-up video in 2024 because they are not sweet and innocent with what they present. They trivialize everything about what it means to be a woman to a lot of women who find this offensive, rather than bridging the gap you sought to alienate. Both of you do. Many others for that matter, and then you hid behind the card of transphobic. You weaponized a word to try and silence detractors.
But at the beginning of the year, beginning of 2023, if you didn't know the story, I made a Patreon and then this Twitter X account that's known for targeting LGBTQs, tweeted that I had started the Patreon in order to groom kids. And then this conservative YouTube, they have a whole pipeline. This conservative YouTuber decided to make a whole video about it, and then everybody at that conservative YouTube channel made a video about it, and then all these TikTokers want to get clout and likes and everything by.
The problem Jeffrey has here is A lot of Jeffrey's content centre around sending the parents out of the room so you can talk to the children. I'm sure you in your heart believe this to be a sweet innocent exchange of information to the child. To the majority of the plebeians, the casuals and the knowing, that comes across as grooming. There is no version of any reality, past, present, future, in any discovered or undiscovered dimension, yes, I've quoted Dr. Cox to an extent, where it should be remotely acceptable for you, a they-them, in their mid to late 40s, should be engaging with a child in any form of conversation. Learn your age bracket, okay? Throughout 2024, Jeffrey Marsh does a lot of attacks on those that are dubbed conservative, right-wingers, a pipeline. I take no issue with anyone's individual political beliefs, I really don't care. I do care that within Jeffrey Marsh's content, you are either misogynist, transphobic, right-wing, or all of the above. You are pigeonholed, because there's no critical thought applied. I can give Jeffrey all the credit in the world for being willing to simply explain and move on, but the explanation is based on a faulty premise, and it all comes from a hatred of the fact that you got caught with content that just comes across as really inappropriate, and you know that. On to February. We're going with another video talking about misogyny. How exciting. Does that mean I get to say misogyny again? I haven't said that in years.
Misogyny is so popular, so addictive in American culture, that sometimes transphobia is misogyny.
I'm going to insert an obligatory, you cannot compare every individual state based on one baseline standard. What I mean by that is, what passes for misogyny in California may not pass for misogyny in Alabama, Montana, Arkansas, Texas, Minnesota, Hawaii, New York. And you can't compare either to the individual states, because the individual state within them are so different culturally. This is important, because you're about to make that false equivalence, and I want it known you cannot compare two different states, or a standard set by one group that may well be based out of New York or California more notably, to that of a state that is red.
Here's Utah.
So a state that voted 58.13% for Donald Trump in favour of 37.65% for Joe Biden. Okay. Had a decent turnout, by the way, of 69%. Hui.
A state official, a member of their education board at the state level, targeted a single student and on social media accused that one student of being trans. The student is not trans. The student is a cisgender teen girl who is good at playing basketball. And the state official targeted her, and she received harassment, death threats, and the school had to get police protection for this student, one of their students. Misogyny, transphobia, all work together to keep non-trans women down as well. It's a policing of who you can be, how you can be it, when you can be it, who says, all the stuff that is familiar to you if you've...
Would you like to know something really impressive about this argument? It's built on a faulty premise. Misogyny does not typically apply to females talking to females. No, it really doesn't. I say this because the education board member being referenced is Natalie Klein, not a male making this comment. You've inferred it with the word misogyny, you effing loser. Let's now head into March and see what Jeffrey got up to during that time. I should again preface this by stating, as we're entering election season, of course there is a lot more content leaning over there. It would also be right to point out, it doesn't get many views. Much like Hassan Piker, Jeffrey Marsh's political views only really gain vast amounts of traction when they are in opposition.
This is a trans person.
Jeffrey Marsh, with the lipstick and the pink dress and the hairy chest and just looking disgusting. He's abusing kids. This is my message to Jeffrey Marsh. Shut the up. You are not trans.
I don't know why you've blurred out the face of one of the most well-known conservative transgendered commentators on all of YouTube. The one thing that separates you from Blair White is very much open to having discussions with other people of differing beliefs. You are not. What's interesting also is I started this video quite early by saying I find it commendable you generally rise above this. I've been debunked now. I don't like it. But we'll continue on by pointing out there is nothing wrong with somebody who themselves is trans, with their political beliefs not aligning with yours. It shows another great thing about individuality, and that is you are not all going to be the same. Beyond being disgusting humans, you are all vastly different. And that's important. It really is. But then you would believe that Blair to be a token, trivializing gender and, of course, downplaying your gender to push a message that only makes them money. I think it's a dangerous area to traverse, to be honest. But you've got more to say. We should hear it.
This happens to be a trans person who makes her living coming after other trans people, including myself, and I actually don't mind it. And I don't mind it for a few reasons. I'm committed to the idea that trans folks should be able to speak their mind, and if this is what is on her mind, she should speak it. But also, I assume it's coming out of trauma. LGBTQ people attacking other LGBTQ people is probably coming out of feeling bullied, othered, traumatized, not wanting to upset Dad.
I've been following Blair White since early SJW, anti-SJW days. Yeah, you really should watch Blair's content to understand why and who they are. So why they are the way they are and who they are, which would lead you to why they are the way they are. Well, she is in this instance, not they. We shall refrain from misgendering on this channel. I think that you trying to find a way to pigeonhole somebody because you can't fathom the opinion, although you haven't provided the full context, which is vitally important as well, I think that because you can't fathom it and you need to pigeonhole, it's your way of coping because you don't understand. Comprehension 101. You don't have it because you don't know how to count up to 101. I have another video from March I want to quickly show you, and then we're going to move on to April.
Super, they, fashion, slay. Nah, yeah, ooh, 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 ooh. Not bad for 46 years old. Serving office, serving lunch break, serving 9 to 5.
Yes, you certainly do look like a person in clothes. Thank the Lord we are not Ferengi, because this would be a very different societal problem. On to April.
Here is Hayarechik, who runs Libs of TikTok, speaking at a university. It's a satisfying video to watch because the students turn the tables on her. She does speaking gigs, she monetizes her tweets, she makes a lot of money off of making trans people's lives quite difficult and unsafe.
So I do remember this video doing its rounds. It's a very rare instance where Jeffrey Marsh actually had a bit of a moment there to really pounce on a subject. The problem Jeffrey has, and it's a very annoying problem because I don't think Jeffrey knows how to resolve it, is that Libs of TikTok isn't just popular with men. Libs of TikTok is popular with lots of women who believe that biological women are the only women, and that trans women, those who are diagnosed with gender dysphoria, are trans women, right? Which also means by extension typically those that identify within the sphere of non-binary and other terms that are not male, female, trans woman, trans man are just playing pretend. Libs of TikTok here is a terrible public speaker at this point, and yes, it does not go well for them. So the satisfaction of being able to use it is 100% on Jeffrey's side. It didn't get many views though. This is how crappy a situation you're in right now, where you couldn't take advantage because your thought was, the best way to milk this one would be to just let Raya speak for herself. Is that her name? Yes.
Let's listen to it together.
It's in our kids' schools, it's on the college campuses, it is in the workforce, it is in the streets, it's when you go to the store. I mean, like, you can't do anything in peace without this wokeness being shoved down your throat wherever you go.
Students laugh.
So, do you have a question? Is there something funny?
I do.
Yeah, sure.
How do you define wokeness?
Wokeness is the destruction of normalcy and
Okay, so the destruction of normalcy, she seems to say, is wokeness, and then the students start laughing. Someone who uses and leverages their platform to try and ruin the lives of innocent people cannot define why she's doing it. She can't articulate what it's all about. quite sad.
I've seen the debates on this. The resounding opinion at this point was Raya didn't do herself very well in this one. Whether she improved or not over the course of 2024, I have no idea. Failing at public speaking is quite common, but a win's a win, am I right? Now, a point that needs to be made is that Libs of TikTok is getting stronger and stronger and going from strength to strength. So this blip didn't work as well against her as one might think, if that makes sense. On to May.
Did you see this tweet from J.K. Rowling? Did you see Elon Musk responding? Okay, you could pause to read if you want, but she's talking about gametes. You need like certain body parts to be a real woman or something. Anti-trans stuff.
J.K. Rowling has held on to a very firm stance for many years about protecting women and women's spaces. Because of this, J.K. Rowling has been dubbed a trans-exclusionary radical feminist, or a TERF. J.K. Rowling is a very outspoken feminist and believes firmly in women's rights. Biological women's rights, more notably. This has led to the cancellation of J.K. Rowling, which has not worked at all. It really hasn't. It started a rather large debate about trans identities and differing genders, but the majority of the arguments end when those that call J.K. Rowling trans rage quit. That's typically how it goes. I firmly support the ability to speak your mind, even if you run counter to the popular message of other people's, your mind on any platform, which is why I like Twitter or X, because people will do it. That may well rub people up the wrong way, but mercifully, I don't care.
And Elon jumps in to say, have you thought about posting about anything else? Have you thought about posting about something positive? When someone else who has a reputation for bigotry says, wow, you seem a little obsessed, that's when you pause, or should pause.
If it makes you feel any better, Jeffrey, I think at some point in the near future, in this timeline, J.K. Rowling goes on holiday. For the sake of it, J.K. Rowling responds to a lot of people who hurl absolute vitriol at her, and she is well within her right to get angrier and angrier, more aggressive and creative if she wants. And don't forget here, she's a wordsmith. The ability to flight, I'm sure, is right up her alley if she really wanted to. On to June.
So this really amazing survey is out, and you can tell from the title that, trans acceptance is a little less than general LGBTQ acceptance.
So this video is in relation to the fact June is Pride Month, and during that month there was obviously a lot of celebration, of course, there are events, but there was also a growing trend. It's been going on for a few years now, it's growing, where it is believed that LG and B should be separate from T, Q and any others that are gender-based, because Pride was originally about sexuality and fighting for those rights. What Pride Month has become does rub a lot of people up the wrong way, especially because there are plenty of videos of the over-sexualized nature and including children. So right up Jeffrey's alley, quite frankly.
But the part that jumped out to me is that 77% of respondents across the political spectrum recognize that politicians are using trans people as a distraction from more important issues. 77%.
I'll be honest, this is hardly a surprise. When you look at congressional approval ratings, fam, politicians are snakes that are self-serving, insider trading losers. They don't get into politics to better their communities, they get into politics to excel their own portfolio, to enhance their lives, not for the betterment of others. Anyone that thinks otherwise is a moron. Just before we go to July, I wanted to insert something that was vaguely political and tie it into Pride, because obviously I can do that. Because Jeffrey did it for me.
When I think of J.K. Rowling, I just get very, very sad. The TERFs and her followers just want me to, right? So they don't get it. Well, don't take my word for it. This is Daniel Radcliffe in a recent interview. Quote, "It makes me really sad. Ultimately, because I do look at the person that I met, the times that we met, and the books that she wrote, and the world that she created, and all of that is to me so deeply empathetic." And I agree.
Many have accused Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, Emma Watson of biting the hand that fed them because they cannot say with absolute certainty their careers would be where they are if it were not for the fact that J.K. Rowling created an entire world that they were cast in. Others within the franchise have spoken up in favour of J.K., others against. And I like that there has been some polite discourse When it comes to the likes of Daniel and Emma, especially because their careers have been quite successful, it often does come across as protecting their brand, but that is an interpretation of those that oppose them. Jeffrey is using Daniel to drive home a point that again doesn't resonate as much because it's based on a faulty premise. A recurring theme throughout all of Jeffrey's work for 2024, and many within the comments, and I really wished I'd shown you, many were for JK regardless of what Jeffrey said.
I would even go so far as to call the worlds of Harry Potter brilliant. And I also personally admire her for speaking out about being a survivor. And so it's really sad that she is consumed by this incredibly deep, made-up bigotry.
So what sucks here is you're willing to accept and acknowledge one lived experience, but you're not willing to accept or acknowledge the other one because that one doesn't resonate with your core message. To me, it's important to acknowledge critical thought must be applied to all, everything. If you can truly understand somebody, it has to come from a place of intellectual honesty, not just jumping on the bandwagon and saying, I disagree because her der. To August, everyone! Yes, we're trying to get through this, alright? We're trying.
Are you joking? Libs of TikTok is posting constantly about teenagers' periods. Are you kidding me? She is the anti-trans villain of X platform. She wants everybody to think that trans people are the creepsters and the groomers, and she is posting about the body parts of teens. Listen, 2 things about Tampon Tim. Number 1, misogyny. The word tampon, the subject of menstruation, is supposed to be some sort of trigger. It's supposed to be so awful for them that it's an insult.
In August, there were a number of key discussions. One was Tampon Tim, referring to Tim Waltz, the running mate for Kamala Harris. There were others concerning J.K. Rowling. There were others discussing libs of TikTok. Turns out, Jeffrey Marsh is getting more involved as the years go by, the year of 2024 in fact, with criticising those that criticise Jeffrey, and others within the community Jeffrey frequents. Okay? I am not now going to be drawn in on the discussion about putting anything menstrual cycle related into boys' bathrooms because it's a very odd discussion to be having, because I don't believe children to be transitioning. I really don't. So I don't believe they should be in there anyway. And I'll say that once. If you don't like it, that's quite alright. We are going to have a differing belief, and that's fine. Oh, and the other discussion was the Olympics, because of Imaine Khalif, who I believe a year prior to winning Olympic gold had failed a gender test at the World Championships. I say I believe because there aren't many articles to confirm nor deny it, and those that apparently deny it aren't good, so it's all up in the air, quite frankly. It reminded me of the debates concerning Caster Semenya many years ago. I say reminded, not the sodding same. On to September.
Ms. J.K. Rowling has not posted in over a week. I think she got advice from her legal representatives. That's just speculation.
Okay, that was in August. It's an honourable mention quickly. J.K. Rowling was on holiday. Legitimately went on holiday, because it turns out, as much as people might think J.K. sits and obsesses over Twitter, no, because she's a writer and she actually has a life. Something which many chronically online people do not have or understand, because it involves things in the real world that they don't have. Friends, family, loved ones, social circle, inner circle, and a real job. Now on to September.
People are going no contact because we do not want your guilt anymore.
Oh, this certainly goes so far as to explain an awful lot about you, Jeffrey, doesn't it now? Do regale us with stories of your woes so we can better understand you more. I'm what you call an empath. Can you tell?
When I went no contact with my mom, this was a few years ago, all I could do at the time was text her and say, I'm not coming home for the holidays, and you won't be seeing me for a while. And she texted back in all caps, what the does that mean?
I won't deny, I don't care enough about the furthering of the story, because I don't need to make a point. People who apply no contact are typically the type to blame you for something and not tell you what it is you've done. Not be willing to have the discussion either to help them reconcile, to fix the relationship, or for you to admit you're in the sodding wrong, which is possible, and I feel sorry for your mother, because I'm almost certain you were supposed to be swallowed onto October. Oh, I should insert, the political content ramped up during this time. A lot of very anti-Trump messages, pro-Kamala messages. Because I don't want to get involved in the political arguments, I'm trying to avoid it. but I will continue to point out they don't get very many views, and lots of comments supporting Trump.
Hi, I'm in a nondescript hotel with my sparkling water, sparkling water.
As if you didn't possess enough red flags, drinking sparkling water is right up there now. You should be ashamed of yourself. I saw this one in passing, thought it was amusing. Let's find something more interesting, though.
Here's the true tea. You don't give too much. You just have been trained into giving to people who are jerks, who sponge it up, who take advantage of you, right? You give exactly the right amount, which is kind, generous, good human being behavior.
I wanted to feature a bit of commentary from Jeffrey that features inspiring quotes, right? Life coaching, as it were. Whether I find it inspiring or not, no, obviously I don't. Because I know that it comes from a disingenuous place. A lot of what Jeffrey provides in the online space is an attack, an aggression, done through passive aggression, like no contact. Which is somewhat ironic, considering Jeffrey Marsh spends an inordinate amount of time now posting comments against people. So you are providing a form of contact, aren't you? This is one of the few videos released in October that isn't based around the election. Now, of course, the election is early November. We're not there yet. Oh boy, I hope there's a winner, and I hope everyone's happy about it. Well, that's not going to be the case, is it? It's America. It's a bloody pantomime. The other reason I wanted to feature the comments about not changing who you are is because I find those kind of comments wrong. Humans, you should constantly be seeking to evolve because throughout your entire life, you are different people. You constantly change. If you don't, you stagnate. Humanity generally doesn't appreciate stagnation unless it has something to anchor it. Whether that be an overbearing government, whether it be a belief system. It doesn't matter what it is in humanity's nature to then rebel against it. Unless that anchor is so ironclad the threat of unaliving is introduced, in which case you fall in line. Aren't you lucky you live in the land of the free, right? I should probably also include this no contact thing also extends as far as including those who vote for Donald Trump as opposed to Kamala Harris, which led to many dubbing Jeffrey Marsh the president of the White Dudes for Harris movement.
Should you cut off contact with family members just because they are voting for Donald Trump? Yes. If so far they have not been able or willing to listen to compassion, to listen to kindness, to listen to you, or even to do their own research and discover that hatred's not the answer, that love and kindness is the answer. If they are unwilling to change, they must experience consequences, and you should not withhold those consequences from them.
So I had to wait before I could render this video because I wanted to make sure the US election had taken place to see whether Jeffrey Marsh would say anything about it so that we could put it into this video to point out just how Jeffrey they are, okay? And to be a Jeffrey is this, basically. And they did in fact, on the day of the election results announced, where Trump had won everything, even the swing states, all of them. It was a landslide victory. This is the very first TikTok Jeffrey put out. And may I just say, I am, like many, unburdened by what has been.
Hello, beautiful. I need you to know two things. Number one, no one can tell you how to treat yourself. I hope you are loving yourself today. There is no Supreme Court, no politician, no group of people who can tell you how to treat yourself. You deserve dignity, and you have full humanity.
Now, on the face of this could come across as one of two things. A magnanimous approach to defeat. On the face of it, it can be taken that way. The other way is, I do what I want, you don't tell me what to do. The thing here is, when it comes to politicians and introducing legislation, there are aspects of what they can do that can in fact change the nature of what you can and can't do, right? And what is going to happen will now be very much, for the next 2 years at the very least, a Republican agenda. Whether you support that or not is not my concern. That is the federal level, by the way. State level is not the same, just to be clear. There's another little bit to this I want to play before I finish with a conclusion.
Number two, it's okay to feel. There will be a lot of feelings today, in the coming days, as we work together to decide together what we'll do.
It is my firm hope we do not get a repeat of 2016, where the rage and the aggression was a bit too much. Let's face it, it was not good, conducive, or progressive. It was very immature. What you decide to do, of course, though, is up to you as an individual or group. I would like to believe that this is a learning opportunity for many parties to take on board the popular vote and the electoral college here, because Donald Trump got both at time of recording anyway. You've got to take that on board. If you cannot learn from this, then you will only repeat when the next person comes along. Now, if I were to summarize the year of 2024 for Jeffrey Marsh, I would say they have gone through a steady decline with the sprinkling of success here and there. One video every so often that just pops, right? Jeffrey is still very active on all social media platforms and still does a lot of content that has rubbed people up the wrong way for a long time. Jeffrey truly believes they are immune to any kind of introspection, because it is not required in the world of Jeffrey. As far as I'm concerned, you're a terrible content creator, and I would never seek to wish your channels or pages to be terminated. I just want you to expedite your race to the bottom, because only when you get there I think you might then realize just how far off you are.